Hi everybody and welcome to Geek on Board. My name is Paul and I'm excited because this is the first video in what I hope to be many more here on my new YouTube channel. And I thought what better way to kick things off than to go through my most anticipated games of 2018. So without further delay, let's hit the list. Alright, so starting off the list is number 11, and that just happens to be Raiders of the North Sea, Fields of Fame. So not a game, but an expansion for the base game Raiders of the North Sea. And this is by designer Shem Phillips, artist, and it'll be my first of probably many apologies from now till the end of time. Mihailo Dmitrievsky is the artist, and of course it is published by Garphill Games, and I believe, yes, Renegade Games as well. Anyways, Fields of Fame is an expansion, of course, for, like I said, for Raiders of the North Sea, and what it adds is a fame track to the base game. And the fame track acts just like the other tracks, the armor track and Valkyrie track on the original board game, but of course it's a fame track. And it acts the exact same way, so the more fame points you get during the game, the more victory points you're going to get at the end of the game. And basically how that works is there's a couple ways to get fame points. One is by being over strength on your attacks on villages. Depending on how many points over you are in strength, translates into 1, 2, or 3 points on the fame track. And then on top of that, there's a new sort of, I guess, resource or a new wooden bit in there known as a Jarl. If you go to a raiding spot and there's a little meeple, a little Jarl meeple on there, then you have to fight the Jarl. You can either fight him, subdue him, or flee. And depending on what you do, is if you flee, obviously you lose points, but if you subdue or you kill them, then that translates into fame points as well. And there's damage tokens that are taken into account when you do fight a Jarl. Very excited for that one. Like I said, Raiders of the North Sea, when it was published by Renegade last year, became a very popular game in my group, and the expansions are much anticipated, to say the least. Anyways, we moved from number 11 to number 10, and like I said, it was basically a top 10 list, and it turned into 11 because number 10 on my list is Raiders of the North Sea Hall of Heroes, which is the other expansion that's coming out again for Raiders of the North Sea. Hall of Heroes, just like the Field of Fame expansion, adds another board. What it adds is the Mead Hall, and the Mead Hall is another action space that you can go to when you're picking actions to take or take from in the village. And the Mead Hall allows you to do a couple things. One, there is 3 character cards that are face up on the Mead board, and just like the Town Hall, like normally in the Town Hall, you go there and you draw 2 cards off the top, so you don't know what they are. These are face up, so you have a choice. You only take one though, and you're going to take one of those character cards, and the other 2 will slide over depending on where they are, and a new one will be drawn and put on the left-hand side. On top of that, depending on where the card is, there's mead and silver to be gained. And mead is a new resource again, just like Jarl's was in Fields of Fame. Mead is just that. It's drink. It's liquid strength. So a mead token, for every mead token that you have, it basically counts as +1 strength on any of your crew members in your boat. So when you go on a raid, before you roll your dice, you have the option of putting mead onto your characters, and that will increase their strength by 1 for each mead that you put on there. Also now there are quests. So similar to the offering tokens from the original game are quest tokens. So as places are raided and those spaces become empty after you take all the plunder, then you're going to turn up, or you're going to flip over a quest token, and you're going to put it on top of the empty space. This one comes with player boards, and basically they sort of allow you to put your crew members on. There's a space for resources, a space for your meeple between turns, your silver, all that stuff can be on the board. But the very top of the player boards is a victory point track. And as you complete quests, you're going to put them on the top part of your player board, and as they go along, The further up again you get by the end of the game, depending on how far you are, the furthest point, you're going to gain those victory points at the end of the game. As you complete 3 quests of one kind, as a bonus, you're able to take one of these reputation tiles, and they have little bonuses like 3 silver or a gold or 2 gold and a silver and things like that. So there's going to be a little bit more plunder sort of from the quest that you're going to be able to gain as well if you get those reputation tiles. And those reputation tiles actually add to your victory point track at the top of the board as well. So if you're able to complete 3 of a kind a couple times, you're actually going to get a couple extra reputation tiles, and that's going to add to your victory points at the end of the game. So very, very, very cool. Looking at, like I said, very excited for both of those expansions. Anyways, we move to number 9, and number 9 is Victorian Masterminds. And this comes from designers Anton Boza and Eric Lang. Artist is David Tisello, and that's from CMON Limited. Now, I think Space Cowboys was the original publisher when this was talked about a couple years ago, but now has since been picked up by CMON. And not too much known about this game. All I've ever seen is some prototypes, and there's a great video that Eric does, I think from the 2015 BGG Con. There's a video of him basically doing a quick run through of how the game plays, and it's a very, very basic prototype at that point. And really what it is really, really cool. The premise is that Sherlock Holmes is dead, and so all the villains now can have carte blanche. They can do whatever they want. Each player is going to have minions, basically, these sort of minions in the form of chips. There's a henchman, there's a machine, saboteur, pilot. These you place face down on various spots, like I said, various cities, various action spaces. Once there's 3 on one space, 3 different tokens, 3 different players placed on one place, well, then they get flipped over and resolved from top to bottom. And of course, each henchman has a different ability. So each player board is asymmetric, so everybody has a different vehicle. There's different parts of the vehicle, and you obtain pieces, parts, resources that you put onto these parts and to build your machine. So looking very, like I said, Anton Boza, Eric Lang, those two together. Very, very, very excited for that one, even though there really hasn't been too much released on it. And number 8 on my list. Number 8 is A Nice Cup of Tea. Now, I've seen a couple things on some other videos and some information on BGG, and I don't know much about it. Apparently it's a new game from Tony Boydell, and from what I gather, one of his previous games, Snowdonia, a very popular worker placement game, and this is sort of almost like a re-theme on that. I haven't played Snowdonia, so I can't say for sure if I'll like it. I love the theme though, and basically you're cultivating tea, and it's very similar apparently to Snowdonia. You're going to be helping to build the railway from Darjeeling and the Himalayan Railway from Siliguri town to the summit at Guam. You're guided by placement actions of their labors. Players can also use their harvested tea leaves to make chai, and apparently chai is like a supercharged ability or super boost or a boost ability that you can get if you use chai, and you can boost your actions. For example, if you're getting resources, normally you would get 3 resources from taking one action. Well, if you use chai, you can boost that and you can get 5 instead of 3. So looks kind of really, really cool. I love worker placement games, and like I said, from some of the information that's come out about it, very, very little again. But really like the theme, really looking forward to that one, to see more on that and what that's going to be like. Number 7 on my list is a game called Museum, and this comes to us from designers Eric Dubus, and I apologize if I said that incorrectly, and Olivier Mellison. Art by Vincent Dutray from Holy Grail Games. And this one, actually there's quite a bit on this because they had a Kickstarter back in November of last year, I believe. So the game is really polished, it looks pretty much complete, and again, artwork is phenomenal. Components look phenomenal, nice big player boards, and looks really, really, really good. Each player is a curator of their own museum, and like I said, the player boards are really nice and large, and they represent each player's museum. And you start off with basic relics, one from each sort of continent, and your goal really is to make the biggest, nicest collection that you can of artifacts and relics from around the world. And really, it's a tableau building game. You're going to collect these cards of relics and artifacts, and you're going to lay them out in your museum, and you're going to sort them by type. There's different types, there's different categories like war, agriculture, architecture, etc., and of course different periods of history, is so anywhere from ancient Egypt to Rome, the Aztecs, things like that. And so you're just basically trying to amass the biggest, nicest collection, of course, based on your patron cards and other things. There are event cards as well. Event cards that can change things in the game, create events and things that circumstances that you have to work around based on historical events. So all these different elements make up basically your collection. It's can be tricky, how you lay things out, but it just looks really, really, really good. Again, like basically a set collection game, and we're looking forward to that as well. Number 6 on the list is Century Eastern Wonders, and this comes to us from designer Emerson Matsuuchi. Artist is Chris Quilliams and is published by Plan B Games. And of course, this is the sequel to last year's Century Spice Road. This is number 2 in what is planned to be a trilogy of games that you can play separately. So each can play separately, or you can combine 1, 2, or all 3 games into one large game. Basically, in Century Spice Road, you're on the caravan, you're on the land, and you're a spice trader. This kind of takes it off the land and sticks you into the ocean, into the sea. And you now are a merchant, and you're in charge of a boat or a ship, and you're basically going around to different islands and different places around the ocean, different ports and things like that, taking actions, trading spices and whatnot. So there's market actions that you can take on those spaces. You can build outposts as one of your actions. And like Spice Road, these market actions that you take, like building a market is one thing, or building an outpost is one thing, but you can take market actions on those spaces, and they allow you to exchange certain spices, sort of like Spice Road, like 3 to 1, 3 yellow for 1 brown, etc. Those kind of things. And of course, everybody starts off with a player board. All your outposts are laid out on the player board in basically rows and columns. And if you empty a column, each column has a symbol above it, which corresponds to bonus tiles that you can get. And they allow you to. Some of them are victory points. Some of them give you additional abilities like extra movement and things like that. Just can't wait to see how it sort of interplays with Spice Road, how the two play together. And kind of really excited for that one. Next on my list is Root, and Root is from designer Cole Whirl, artist Kyle Farron, and is published by Leader Games. And these are the folks that brought us Vast, and Vast was a very popular game with my group, and we are eagerly awaiting this one. Basically very similar premise or sort of mechanics, where you have unique asymmetric characters that each person controls. They have unique capabilities, and each has a different victory condition, just like Vast. Basically, you've got a woodland board that's sort of the main focus of all the groups, and basically you have the cats, which sort of rule or have seized control of the woodland. You've got another group called the Eerie, and the Eerie are basically like birds of prey, and they have hawks, and they're trying to capture as much territory back. And then you have the Woodland Alliance, which are like the foxes, I think the bunnies, and a few other groups of animals that are sort of the sort of I think one person described it as the merry men, sort of the behind the scenes. They're recruiting forces, they're hatching conspiracies and takeover plans and all that kind of thing, and they're trying to be a thorn in the side of the cats. And one of the last characters are the vagabonds, and these are the raccoons, and they're sort of like the thief in Vast. They're sort of behind the scenes and in the shadows, and they're stealing things from other players and fighting the other factions, and there's a little bit of working together, but everybody has their own victory condition, and things are broken down in I think there's a songbird or bird song is the sort of first phase, and there's a daytime phase and an evening phase where everything takes place. So anyways, looks very interesting. Again, this one was on Kickstarter not too long ago, and we're excited for that one. Number 4 on the list is The City of Kings, and this is from designer Frank West. Artist is Miguel da Silva, and the publisher is The City of Games. And basically, it's sort of an RPG feel to it. It's a cooperative tactical role-playing game, really. The player boards are just huge. It's unreal, the amount of information that's on them. They have so many attributes. There's so many skills. There's so many things that the player can slide and configure themselves, and it's unreal. There's just sort of the vast amount of stuff on these boards. It's great. And basically, you have a board made up of tiles, which is called the Ageless Realm, and you're turning over these tiles using workers or your character. As you move through, you can flip over tiles and explore, and you can discover things like resources, side quests, hazards, building sites, traders, and of course, you come across layers and creatures. And the really cool thing I think about this is the combat. There's no dice involved. It's all based on player stats and the stats of the monsters. And what's really cool is that you're drawing. As you come across these monsters, creatures, and things that you do have to do battle with, it's sort of generated on the spot, and the skills and the attributes for the monsters are actually pulled out of the bag with little chits, little tokens that go on there, and so it's completely random every single time. There's probably millions of combinations. It looks really, really, really good. That is number 4 on my list, and we move now to number 3. So number 3 on my list is Thunderstone Quest. And this is from designer Mike Elliott, Brian Reese, Mark Wooton, and artists Jason Engel, Matt Paquette, and David Sue. And this is published by AEG. It's a fantasy deck building game. And I know there were the original Thunderstone and Thunderstone Advance. There are parts from the original Thunderstone Quest in this, but really what makes it unique is that you have scenarios and stories that you play through, and you do have, your basic set of character cards. You have dungeon tiles that are laid out, so there's a bit of a dungeon crawling aspect to it, where you're looking for different items, but you're also fighting different creatures and monsters and things like that. So it looks really, really cool. It's all randomly set up. You can then turn around and go into town and visit shops and be able to buy certain items and just like a deck builder sort of thing, where you're purchase more items and add things to your deck. So looks really, really, really cool. I couldn't believe the size of the box on this one. It was ginormous. Every time you think you see something like a Gloomhaven or whatever, and then for a deck building game, and from what I understand, some of the pictures I've seen of the insert and the way it's laid out is quite unique, with 2 different layers, and it just looks like it's going to be really, really, really good. And second from the top, so now we're on to number 2, which is Imaginarium. And this is a game from Bruno Cathala and Florian Siriex. Again, I apologize if I got that wrong. And artist Flatus Babistis, and published by Bombix Games. So I apologize for any mispronunciation. Again, not too much known about this game, though there has been some. I think they're beyond the prototype. I've seen some pretty impressive artwork. The artwork and the components on this are through the roof. There are minis in the game, little sort of busts, of each character, and I wouldn't call them minis. They're minis, but they're actually pretty good size. And the artwork is phenomenal from what I've seen. I've seen a couple videos. I got to see a playthrough video, and thoroughly impressed with the look of the game. It's very interesting. Again, it has a bit of a steampunk feel to it, definitely with the artwork. And basically the premise from what I've read is basically that each player is a mechanic, and you're the mechanics that are in charge of building and fixing the machines that make dreams, or that create dreams. And so you're going to collect resources, you're going to acquire machines, you're going to fix machines, you're going to take actions. It's a pretty unique little dial system. where you move a dial around. There's a sort of a circle with different actions that you can take, but the dial, of course, has two points to it. So when you point to one action, it points to another one, and you can't do the same actions, I think, twice in a row. Like I said, you're making machines. Charcoalium is the resource in this, which is kind of unique. And like I said, you're basically triggering different effects through the combination of machines to be able to get resources and things like that. And it just looks, it looks stunning. And like I said, Bruno Cathala, hopefully can't go wrong there, but it is definitely high on my list of games to see in 2018. Last but not least on my list, number 1 is Architects of the West Kingdom. This game comes from designer Shem Phillips, S.J. McDonald, artist Mihailo Dmitrievsky, and is published by Carpal Games. This is going to take place around what is now known as the Paris area, or Paris, and players are going to basically be taking on the roles of architects, builders that are building up that Paris area. And so it's basically essentially a worker placement game with resource management and constructing of buildings. So not only are you going to have physical resources, but you're going to have certain apprentices that you're going to need to build certain buildings, more complex buildings, more different apprentices. If you're continually place one worker in one spot, the amount that you get increases each time. So for example, if you put a meeple or a worker on a forest area, you get 1 wood. If you put a second meeple in that same forest area, the next time you're going to get 2 wood. Again, if you did it when your turn comes around, you put 1 more on that forest, it's going to be 3 wood that you get. So it's really interesting that way. Now, other players have the ability to stop that by going to the town hall. They pay a tax, and they can actually take all of your workers off one area, one action space, and they sort of round them all up, and they actually send them to a prison space on the board, and they actually get, I believe, $1 or a coin or whatever the currency is per worker that they drop off at the prison. Now, you don't lose your workers, you do get them back, but you do have the waste in action by putting one of your workers or a meeple there on the prison, and you can return all the workers that were put there. So another cool thing on this game is there's a virtue system, and it's sort of like a track similar to the tracks in Raiders, but there's like a plus and there's a minus, I believe, and basically depending on what you do. So certain things you do in the game will give you are good things and will cause you to go up on the virtue track. On the opposite end of that, if you do bad things or certain things you do that are considered bad, will cause you to go down the other way on the virtue track. And I'm not quite sure what the consequences are of being high up on the track or really down on the track, but obviously that it has some play in the game. So very, very, very interesting. Looks like another, I hope, winner from Shem Phillips, and can't wait till that does arrive. Anyways, that's the end of the video. That's the end of my list for 2018. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, this is just my first video of what I hope to be many, so please leave a comment below. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Let me know some of the things maybe you want to see, and hopefully I can kind of work towards providing content that others would like to see. But I will put a link in the description to my Board Game Geek Guild. If you want to go for more information and join there, you can contact me or leave comments there, as well as my Facebook page. Yeah, so if you liked, please comment, please subscribe. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.